What do I think of Eric Swalwell's tweet about how there are more than 100 Republicans ready to throw in the towel on their Trump loyalty? Great question. And I think that Swalwell's tweet was really interesting. So, what Eric Swalwell, who is a Democratic representative from California, was doing in that, potentially anyway, I think was putting pressure on Republicans because here's where we are as a country right now. The president of the United States is clearly deteriorating mentally and probably physically. And everybody is aware of this. This is not some deep secret or conspiracy theory. Watch him yourself and see what you think. So, this presents a real political problem for a lot of Republicans, especially people who have been counting on the votes of MAGA Republicans. Because what happens when Trump is no longer able to do his job? Now, at the same time, you also have three major problems for the Republicans. One is the economy. 22 states are now sliding toward a recession. The tariffs are sending prices through the roof. The deportations are making things very expensive, and the renderings of people to other countries are making things very expensive. Job growth is way down, and people are really hurting. And now we're just about to have these higher prices kicking in on the Affordable Care Act markets. The economy is a real problem for the MAGA Republicans. But another real problem is the attacks on immigrants. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit, I'm sure. But those are very unpopular. But then there is also the issue of the Epstein files. The Epstein files are what Swalwell was articulating in that tweet, that Republicans are backing away from the Epstein files. And in a way, that's kind of a no-brainer. The Republicans in power would not be trying so incredibly hard to keep the Epstein files under wraps if there was nothing damaging in them about prominent Republicans, including President Donald J. Trump. And we know that there are things in there about Trump, both because the Wall Street Journal said so earlier this summer in an article, and because when asked about it on Capitol Hill, what is today? It's Thursday, so it must have been earlier this week. Attorney General Pam Bondi refused to answer whether or not she had seen photographs of Donald Trump with inappropriately dressed or undressed. What the Senator Whitehouse, who was questioning her, said was young women. But of course, we know that the people who were being trafficked in the Epstein circles were children. So she refused to answer that with a no, which seems like if somebody said something like that to you, have you seen these photographs? You would say, if you hadn't seen them, you would say no, right? But instead, she attacked White House and sort of said, "Well, you're slandering him," but she never said no, and I cannot tell you how crucially important it is to listen to what people say, especially in this administration, because often we make the mistake, those of us who try and answer really honestly to things, of hearing what we expect to hear. And in that case, if you listened uncarefully or casually, you heard her saying, "Well, you're slandering him," which sounds like a no, but it is not a no. No is no. And in that case, that was really revealing, that she refused to say that she couldn't answer that question. No. So the answer to that obviously is yes. Those photographs, at least the implication is that she has seen them. Well, why would you want to protect that when you know, even if you are a MAGA legislator, that many of your MAGA supporters care deeply about the Epstein files? That's one of the reasons they supported Trump and the release of those Epstein files. So if you're a MAGA Republican, you're in real trouble here. And Swalwell's not wrong, I suspect, when he says a number of Republicans are ready to jump ship, because he is hearing that directly from colleagues, I'm sure, but those of us who are sort of on the peripheries of of Congress hear that too. But we also hear that that people are waiting for the courts to take care of things, that they're hoping that Trump is going to be incapacitated. They're just sort of hoping somebody else is going to take care of it. So my sense is it is certainly possible that Swalwell was just saying straight up, this is the truth. I think more likely he was putting pressure on Republicans to say, come on, guys, there are hundreds of you out there. There's 100 of you out there. Just freaking do something. And you know that that is a real problem for the MAGA Republicans because House Speaker Mike Johnson is refusing to swear in Adelita Grijalva, the new representative from Arizona, who will be the 218th vote on the discharge petition to bring the release of the Epstein files to a vote. And they're obviously putting a ton of pressure on the 4 Republicans who have signed on to that to take back their signatures. Why would they? I mean, you can pressure them all you want, but why would they cover it up when actually you're on the right side of this question, not only morally, not only historically, but in terms of MAGA voters? So that I think is what Swalwell was all about there. This goes right in with the question about Swalwell. Why is Marjorie Taylor Greene taking a different position? Again, really interesting, because Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to run for Senate in Georgia, and she wanted Trump's endorsement, and he would not give it because she cannot win, or at that time she could not win as a Senate candidate in Georgia because she's such a fringe candidate and she's in a district that is very heavily skewed toward Republicans. So they were like, ain't happening because you can't win here. She is backed up. She's obviously angry about that, but she is also looking at where her best political advantages are. And if you notice, she has come out for the release of the Epstein files. Now she's come out for the extension of the ACA premium tax credits, which will help stop this incredible spike in healthcare insurance premiums. She has also come out against the shutdown. She says the Republicans should get back in session for the shutdown, and all of those things that she has identified have as much as 80% of Americans behind that. So she's reading the tea leaves and she's saying, listen, MAGA just told me, Trump just told me I can't get any further with him. So I'm going to see where the wind is blowing. And it's pretty clear the wind's blowing over here. And that's a really important bellwether. Similarly, Joe Rogan has come out against, Joe Rogan is a really popular podcaster in what they call the manosphere. And he was instrumental in convincing a lot of young men to vote for Trump. Now he's come out against what Trump is doing. A lot of similar people in that manosphere sort of podcast world have come out against Trump recently and against his behavior, not necessarily against him, but against his policies. Rolling Stone just had a big piece on it a couple of days ago. And again, they're looking where their audience is and probably also personally embarrassed that they, one of the things about politics, if you really do it deeply, and like the friend I spent time with today and I study it. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we do in our spare time. We read books on it. We study it. We look at situations, et cetera, et cetera. People just coming in sometimes don't see the whole picture. And it sounds really good to have a really quick fix. And of course, this makes sense. And they jump in. And if you're a scholar, you can have an advisor who says, wait just a second. Let me explain to you the backstory and what's going on here. But if you're a podcaster who sort of was playing with politics for the first time and is watching what's happening, you feel burned. And this is what they said. One guy, and I forget which one he is, said, I wish I'd never gotten involved in politics. That's the wrong takeaway. The right takeaway, if you are surprised by where we are, is, wow, this is more complicated than I thought and much more important than I thought. So I'm going to do it right going forward. Anyway, so these people are realizing this because, again, what can Trump offer them at this point? I mean, who is he bringing on board? Who is he bringing to their audiences? Who is he bringing to the voting booth? His popularity is plummeting. And, really he's making this authoritarian grab I'll talk about in a minute, but there's no reason to stay behind him at this point unless you are ideologically committed to what his administration is doing. And there actually aren't a lot of Americans who are.